Welcoming you to the Pro Throw practice fields for day 2 of Oregon State Fall Camp. Brenden Slaughter, BeaversEdge Publisher, joined by TJ Mathewson, BeaversEdge writer and KJO radio host. We're back, folks. Good to be talking with you again. We've got a lot to dive into on this very short video, but before we dive into the biggest news of the day, we're going to go ahead and break down practice for you guys real quick. And again, a reminder to head over to BeaversEdge.com. TJ and I will have a complete report, got all the rotations and everything that went down today, so definitely check that out. A couple highlights, though, right away, TJ. Let's go ahead and start with the receivers. Who caught your eye out there and who made some big time plays?
How about this play from Zach Card? I mean, we'll talk about DJ here in a second, but DJ had the pocket collapse on one of these plays, and he rolls out to his right, and mostly just like a make it up as you go play, and Zach Card finds himself wide open in the middle of the field. He probably might have scored in a real game. I mean, they obviously whistle these plays dead as soon as the ball gets caught, but I think that was most impressive based on, he's a true freshman, and DJ, continues to show. I mean, he's manipulating that pocket well.
Yeah, and I also like what I saw from David Wells, too, the freshman as well. We didn't see a ton of him in the spring. It was mostly, like TJ said, Zach Card was kind of the guy that jumped out in spring. But David Wells today, just from the sideline right here behind us, made a really great streaking catch. And TJ, he beat his defender by a step or two. Like, he had room.
Yeah, and let's give a shout out to Aiden Childs, too. He has struggled with his deep ball accuracy these 2 days of practice, but that one, he was right on the money. And Wells, yeah, I mean, he was torching his guy.
And, we talked to Coach Lindgren today. We also talked to Talise Fuaga, and we also talked to Jonathan Smith very briefly as well, and then Ben Gulbranson. But, just kind of breaking that down, it really seemed like even Brian Lindgren was impressed by Childs' throw there to Wells. I mean, it was arguably one of the highlights of today.
Yeah, he made sure to point out, he's like, hey, what was the most impressive part of that is that Aiden managed to fit that in after all of his struggles throwing the ball down the field, and that's what he led off the sentence with, which shows. I mean, Aiden still does have some things to grow, and you saw him in the spring game. Wow, look at him! But he's experiencing some growing pains right now, and he pushed through a little bit of that here today with that throw.
Yeah, certainly. And again, thanks for joining us here at BeaversEdge.com. We've got a great view of the new stadium for those of you who haven't seen it right behind us. Further going into practice today, switching to the other side of the ball. Let's talk some defense. Let's talk some pass rush. The Beavers last year, TJ, great strides, top defense, awesome things across the board. Pass rush was lacking. Quarterback sacks were lacking. At least talking to Ben today, who says that he felt like there's an increased pass rush. And then I think based simply on depth, experience, and talent, it's not like the Beavers have a whole different group of personnel from last year. They just look more efficient at doing it, and there are some guys we'll mention here in a minute. But the pass rush does look improved these first 2 days.
We did see some quarterbacks running all over the place today, and if you subscribe and you look at the Nuggets, like a lot of these great plays are on the run because the quarterbacks really could not operate from the pocket today. They made it pretty tricky on them, and we were really impressed. I mean, that one play by John McCartan was pretty nice.
Yeah, well, again, if you want the details on that play, John McCartan just blew up a freshman offensive lineman and had an incredible play on the backfield. Again, TJ's got that broken down at BeaversEdge.com on the damn board. Also, moving back to the secondary, a lot of new faces, and I don't know, TJ, if there's been a position group that has had more musical chairs in and out than the secondary. I mean, obviously, you've got your veterans there, but for instance, we didn't see Katano Adapo take a big run today in the 11-on-11. The more veterans, we're seeing them take it a little easy. And we're seeing a lot of young defensive backs and a lot of guys making plays. A couple guys that caught my eye today were Jack Koenig was definitely there, Drake Vickers, Winston Russell. But yeah, it really seems like they're trying to get a big-time competition going between those secondary players.
And it would make us think that they're pretty set, I would say, on who they see as starter. We did see a little bit of run from Jaden Robinson today. I think he had a really nice pass breakup in practice. But otherwise, I mean, I don't see Ryan Cooper really do anything today. Catan was running around a little bit, but really that was it.
Right, we saw Trice Ivy have a really physical breakup on the ball right in front of us here. We kind of pegged him as a potential starter going into camp. He looks really good. He's got great size as well. So again, a lot of promising progress for Oregon State. And again, the vibe we could get here from today is that the Beavers are entirely focused on this campaign right here, 10 toes on the ground, as they say. And that'll give us a great transition to our next topic, obviously the bummer news of the day. Oregon and Washington likely headed to the Big Ten. TJ, so serious, so big. Jonathan took time out of a day he wasn't supposed to speak to the media to come talk about it. Nothing more than, pretty basic stuff, but he emphasized talking to the team last night, which again, that's telling that they had a team meeting about this specific thing last night. And he said, we got this great season in front of us. We got a brand new stadium behind us. The Beavers are focused on this season, TJ. We had media members asking, Ben, will it be tough to keep focus? He said, no, I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle. But it's such an interesting spot for Oregon State, and I'll say interesting to keep it positive, but it's the Beavers, it's going to be interesting to see where the chips ultimately fall, but the most important thing, folks, Jonathan Smith has his team focused on this year, the here and now.
And that's all you can really do at this point, because you could hear the frustration in Jonathan's voice a little bit. As this news has leaked out, I mean, the inevitable has creeped up on us, and what we thought would happen has exactly transpired. I mean, I can only imagine for you this morning getting up early to work on Rip City Radio to see the positive news that I slept through, and then woke up to the less positive news on the other side. And I could only imagine what it's like for these coaches, for these athletic directors and such here around Oregon State and Washington State as well. I mean, Jake Dickert did, like, his comments the last 2 days. I mean, Jonathan usually keeps it pretty even peeled. I mean, we saw a little bit of emotion from him today, but Jake Dickert does not have he doesn't keep the filter on when he was talking about this stuff. I mean, he's talking about, growing up listening to these games and watching these games, and now it's all going to come crashing down because of some TV money.
Right. And it's unfortunate, as TJ mentioned, Justin Myers and I were breaking it down at Rip City Mornings. We saw, the morning where it's like, hey, we think they're going to go. And then it was, oh, wait, everyone's going to stay. And then it was, oh, Oregon doesn't want the Apple TV deal. And here's where we are now. So, bottom line with all that, if it'll go as it's meant to be, right? And especially for as it's meant to work out, it will for Oregon State. And more importantly, we've speculated about it a ton. We just wanted to talk about the seriousness of it as Jonathan Smith came and talked. But the big takeaway for all of you at home is, don't worry about tomorrow until tomorrow. And that's the message that we got from Ben, from Talise Fuaga, and obviously Jonathan Smith, and even Coach Lindgren to an extent. Is just they feel they've got an awesome season ahead of them, which we feel that they do, a brand new stadium, awesome home games, a quarterback who we think is going to be pretty darn good. The vibes for Oregon State are high right now, TJ, but you can't help but think there's that cloud that's just kind of like a typical Oregon storm cloud, just like hanging out over in the corner waiting to come. So it'll be interesting to see how that all unfolds, but the big takeaway now, the Beavers are focused on now, and I think that's absolutely the right thing to do.
And that's the only thing you can do at this point, right? They cannot control what happens beyond this season. That is up to, unfortunately, the TV executives.
Yes.
TV executives, athletic directors, Scott Barnes. I mean, yeah, it's gonna be something to see, something we really haven't seen before, and it's really unfortunate that it is this way. I mean, how do you feel, man? I mean, there are gonna be no more rivalry games after this year. No, like not.
It's terrible. I mean, who can see? I mean, the only thing that I can see as a positive is the last time the Oregon Ducks came into the stadium, Oregon State won. Yeah. I mean, that's something the Beavers can hold. But you're talking about the fact that who knows how it all shakes out, but I don't see a reason as to why
Oregon would ever play here again.
Exactly. That's why I said Oregon would be sure happy to have you come to Autzen in September.
Right.
But that rivalry being, killed is, for someone who's grown up here, spent 27 years of his life here, it's kind of like a knife punch. I mean, we're obviously independent journalists who cover our team, but that doesn't mean we don't love Pac-12 football. I mean, that's why I do what I do. And, TJ being a Pac-12 guy as well from his college time, it's definitely unfortunate. And as TJ alluded to, it's a much bigger point. It's unfortunate that money and corporate America has worked its way into college football, probably something that we could have done without. But like anything else, we move forward. So again, we'll see what happens ultimately with Oregon State, and it really seems like the Beavers have a positive mentality with it. So if the Beavers have a positive mentality with it, your boy's going to roll with a positive mentality with it too, and see where all the chips fall. And again, TJ and I are going to have complete reaction from today's practice. Obviously broke down a little bit of it here, but we're going to have in-depth notes on the damn board, so anybody who's wanting to know rotations and all the things like that, make sure to head on over to BeaversEdge.com. We'll be back at tomorrow's practice, or we talk to Coach Bray and the defense. Make sure to stay tuned to BeaversEdge.com. For TJ Mathewson, I'm Brenden Slaughter, signing off.